With thousands of solos you could learn, which one holds the key to transforming your playing skills? After teaching for a decade, I've encountered many students who struggle with repetitive, uninspired playing. My number one prescription, Sultans of Swing by Dire Straits. By understanding the 4 tricks within the song solos, it'll actually make you solo better, sound better, and play chords better. Are you ready for that? Yeah, he's ready. The first Sultans of Swing trick will enable you to solo more melodically with a method I call the roller coaster, which is step 1. There are shapes hidden within the first solo that will transform how you think about soloing. These are the shapes, but what do they mean for you? The melody of the solo is following this pattern, which includes these roller coaster shapes. Let's listen to the solo again. Mark Knopfler's a brilliant guitar player, but he's acknowledged that he's a songwriter first. And this solo has been written using the tools of a songwriter. To access these tools, well, you need to think like a songwriter. And songwriting tools will help you fix your solos from sounding like a random collection of notes. You see, a great solo is like its own little singable song within the song. And a powerful way to create a singable solo is to think about the shape of the melody, and this is where this bad boy comes in. Singable melodies often use stepwise motion. The notes go up and down like a roller coaster. Now there are different shapes that a melody can take, but just this shape is similar to, is this the real life? Is this just fantasy? Or, you gotta shake it off, shake it off. I have a 6-year-old daughter, it's fine. Thinking about melody shapes can be an endless source of inspiration. So you could use this pattern again, but start high, then low, then high, then low, and with an interesting rhythm, you can get this. Beware though, a classic noodling trap is just going up and down the scale with the same rhythm, and that does sound noodly. But using the roller coaster with a variety of different rhythms is a hack to creating melodic solos on the spot. An intermediate solo skill worth investing in is trying to sing a melody, thinking about the shape, and then putting it on the guitar. I find intermediates create much more interesting solos this way. So for example, bum 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 bum, bum 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 bum, bum 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 bum, bum 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 bum. And being able to connect the solo in your head to the solo on your guitar is a power skill that George Benson has mastered. A great resource to get some inspiration on the shape of pop melodies so you can use them in your own solos is the website Hook Theory, which has an endless amount of famous melodies to draw inspiration from. But to really lock your solo into the chords of the song, you can use a trick that Knopfler uses with a method I call mix and match. Let me play the solo again in a different way to help you understand how Knopfler is choosing the notes for the solo. I've played in this way to demonstrate how mixing and matching scales and chords works. Here he's playing the D natural minor scale, then he plays an ascending A major chord, although on the track he plays it here. This A major arpeggio is played over an A7 chord. And then he plays a descending D minor chord, although on the track he's playing it here with this E minor form. And this D minor arpeggio is simply played over a D minor chord. This is a great use of chord tone soloing, which is soloing using the notes of the underlying chord. Intermediates often think of scales only, so they would just play the A minor pentatonic scale over this. But you can let the chords guide you. Let's look at the chords for a basic progression. You can start by improvising with an A minor pentatonic scale over the A minor chord. When it gets to the C, you can descend down a C major arpeggio like this one. And being able to mix in fairly basic chord arpeggios locks the soloing into the chords. Now, I wasn't in the studio when Knopfler wrote this solo, but it's almost certain that he would have spent time crafting it. He would have had time to think about which scales and chords to match the progression, and to be able to create a singable melody. You don't have this time, so knowing how to play chords in at least a few different positions will give you many more options with your soloing. There's a free link to all the tabs in today's videos, and please give the video a like if you find it helpful. The next trick will not only change the way you play solos, but also make your guitar sound more interesting, with a technique called chicken picking. Why is this technique called chicken picking, and why is it useful to you? Well, let's first listen to this second solo. The chicken picking technique was popularized by Elvis Presley's guitarist James Burton, and it gives those country vibes. James Burton used a plectrum and then picked with his middle finger. Knopfler uses his fingers only. And I find that some students prefer using 3 fingers on the shred part. And that's okay too, because there's nothing that says, "These are the unbreakable rules of chicken picking." And what you realize at the intermediate level is what's brilliant about guitar is you can bring all your past experiences of playing to the table to create your own sound. But what are you trying to achieve with chicken picking? Because that's what's important. What we're trying to achieve is playing these short, sharp staccato notes with some muting, which gives a sound kind of like a chicken picking. To get that classic Knopfler sound, he plays a lick, but with some muted notes thrown in, and also using his fingers, you get that Knopfler effect. But how can you use this, and why might it be the missing ingredient to your sound? Firstly, a really useful but simplified version of this that less experienced guitarists can do is you put your thumb on one string, for example the B string, and use your index finger on the string below. And you get this kind of snap, which sounds great. But if you're a pick person, should you bother learning this? A lot of intermediates tend to get good with the pick. That only gives them a few dynamic options. You can play louder or softer, but by having at least a basic fingerstyle technique, it gives you additional sound flavors. And this is why a lot of the greats throw in at least some fingerstyle techniques, or hybrid techniques with a pick and fingers, like Stevie Ray Vaughan and John Mayer. It allows them to have more sound options, and it can do that for you. But the final really important thing to take from his technique is that Knopfler plays with such great dynamic range. So he'll play a really loud part and then a very soft part. And that just sounds so musical. In the shredding part of the solo, Knopfler is linking his solo directly to the chords. And understand what's going on here will make your chord choices better, with a trick I call the chord connector. Let's listen to that shred part. I know that this part will be difficult for even experienced players, but you don't need to be able to play it that fast to understand the power of the trick, so you can use it on any set of chords. Knopfler is playing 3-note triads in a really interesting way. I found that learning triads is one of the best ways for students to learn the notes of the fretboard, but something really special is going on here. Over the D minor chord, Knopfler is playing this minor triad with a root note on the E string, but for the next chord, which is a B flat, if you were to use this shape, or the equivalent shape, for a major chord, it'd be this shape. But at the speed of this track, that'd be far too much ground to cover. But that's not the only issue. These two chords don't link together nearly as well as they could, because we can make 3-note triads link together better if they share notes. And if you look at the first two chords, the D minor triad and the B flat triad, Knopfler links them together with not 1, but 2 notes. And this creates this epic chord transition, which 30 years after it was written, people were still cheering for. Now I've mentioned this in other videos, but linking notes in chords is a trick used by many songwriters, especially Coldplay. And it's an underappreciated skill that in musical terms is called common tone voice leading, which is keeping common notes between chords to smooth out the transition. Now there's no intermediate that
knows all the chords,
but many know a lot of chords, and being able to transition between these chords by sharing notes allows you to solo better, write music better, and yes, play better. Here are both solos back to back with a little breakdown of what's going on, and this backing track is available as part of that free download. Probably the greatest soloist of all time, Jimi Hendrix, has some great tricks to help you stop noodling, and for those, I'd watch this video next.